In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Beneficent, now with the main headlines. Imam Hussein Foundation carries out charitable activities across Afghanistan. Ramadan 27th marks anniversary of tobacco banning fatwa by Mirza Shirazi. Pakistan continues illegal arrest of Afghan refugees, refugee lawyer says. Taliban suspends educational activities until further notice. Assalamu alaikum dear viewers, this is Fatima Malik and you're watching Shia Waves live from Imam Hussein TV 3 in London. The Imam Hussein Foundation for Relief and Development, affiliated to Grand Ayatollah Shirazi, has emphasised that its Ramadan, humanitarian and charitable activities are being carried out across all Muslim countries. In a statement received by Shia Waves agency, the organisation said that all praises due to Allah Almighty. Ramadan essential food packs have been distributed to disadvantaged and poor families in Afghanistan's impoverished cities. The organisation added the philanthropic work is carried out as part of the Ramadan project to distribute 100,000 food packs in cooperation with Imam Hussein Charity and Imam Hussein Media Group. It should be mentioned that Imam Hussein Foundation, IHC and IHTV Group have continued to launch Ramadan food relief campaigns reaching out to needy families across Iraq and other Islamic countries. The 27th of Ramadan marks the anniversary of the famous fatwa issued by Mirza Shirazi to ban tobacco. The tobacco ban movement was a turning point of the anti-colonial struggles of the Iranian people, especially because they stood up against colonialism and tyranny under the leadership of independent Marja'iyya and achieved victory. As a result, the Qajar king officially accepted defeat against the people and the religious authority by cancelling the concession made to the English company Reggae. Due to historical and geopolitical reasons, Iran was never directly colonised. Rather, colonialist powers, especially the British, plundered the resources and national wealth of the Iranians by taking advantage of the weakness of the greedy rulers of the country. When Nasir al-Din Shah Qajar granted the monopoly of selling tobacco to British colonialism, pupils and followers of Mirza Shirazi staged widespread protests in several cities of Iran. This was followed by the issuance of the historical fatwa by the Mirza banning tobacco, which meant the nationwide spread of the demonstrations, which even penetrated the inside of the Qajar court. The tobacco ban movement and the historical fatwa of Mirza Shirazi serve as one of the most important historical examples that show independent Shia religious authorities have always defended the rights of the people and stood by them against authority and colonial governments. The solidarity and national unity and support of the independent Marja'iyya was the main reason for the victory of this movement. Representatives of the Afghan refugees in Pakistan complain that despite having legal documents, they are still detained and tortured by Pakistani officials and only released upon paying a bribe. Manazak Akar, a Karachi-based human rights lawyer, confirmed in a conversation with some media outlets that Afghan refugees are detained by Pakistani police despite being registered with the United Nations and even having visas. During the last 2 months, she added, at least 1,400 Afghans have been arrested, of which about 400 individuals held UN cards, Pakistani resident cards, or visas. It should be mentioned that more than 600,000 Afghans have escaped to neighbouring Pakistan since the Taliban came to power in August 2021. Let us remind our respected viewers of today's headlines. Imam Hussein Foundation carries out charitable activities across Afghanistan. Ramadan 27th marks anniversary of tobacco banning fatwa by Mirza Shirazi. Pakistan continues illegal arrest of Afghan refugees, a refugee lawyer says. Also tonight, construction of the first seminary for Shia females in Kenya. The Taliban-controlled government in Afghanistan has suspended all educational activities in Kandahar and Helmand provinces when an expert committee has been formed to investigate all educational initiatives and operations. The Afghan Education Ministry requested the suspension of all education activities until all school and college programs have been reviewed, intending to handle all controversial issues at the national level. Since the Taliban took control in August 2021, they have imposed restrictions on education in Afghanistan, mainly targeting women. Restrictions include prohibiting females from attending schools and colleges, gender segregation in public areas, and forbidding them from travelling long distances unless accompanied by a male relative. The suspension of educational activities is a continuation of the Taliban's effort to limit access to education, particularly for women and girls. Despite initial pledges to be more moderate than the previous regime, the Taliban has reverted to its strict interpretation of Islamic law, restricting women's rights and freedom in the country. It should be mentioned that the move is expected to serve the extremist ideology of the Taliban group, as recent restrictions on press freedom and human rights have been revealed. And now we continue with some short news. After amendments to noise regulation rules were finally signed into law by the mayor on Monday, Minneapolis became the first US major city to permit all 5 Muslim calls to prayer to be publicly broadcasted. According to the city's council members, the move will make Muslim immigrants feel at home and will legally encourage religious freedom in the state. It should be mentioned that this legal project began when Mayor Jacob Frey issued an executive order to allow calls to prayer during the month of Ramadan in 2020. During a Security Council meeting on Monday, UN Special Envoy Hans Grundberg stated that despite the recent positive developments in Yemen, such as a relative calm and historic mass prisoner exchange, the conflicting parties need to commit to their responsibilities to achieve lasting peace and end the war. I believe we have not seen such a serious opportunity for making progress towards ending the conflict in 8 years, Grundberg noted. He stressed on taking measures to relieve the dire economic and humanitarian situations in Yemen. Human rights activists and organisations criticise Ethiopia's recruitment of 500,000 female domestic workers in Saudi Arabia due to lack of jobs and life difficulties. Ethiopians have been flocking to Saudi Arabia, Lebanon and Kuwait in search of work since the 80s. This usually is arranged by Ethiopian recruitment agencies or many times human traffickers. However, this time the Ethiopian government is overseeing the entire process, including recruitment and advertising. News outlets reported that administrative documents were seen to reveal plans to recruit as many as 500,000 women between the ages of 18 to 40 to send to Saudi Arabia to work as domestic workers. According to the UN envoy to Sudan, Volker Perthes, armed clashes between military rivals have killed over 180 people and injured 1,800 others since the weekend. Amid growing fighting and civilian casualties, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has appealed to both sides to cease hostilities immediately and begin a dialogue to resolve the crisis. The African Union's Peace and Security Council has also called for a peaceful solution and inclusive dialogue to resolve differences between the conflicting parties. It should be mentioned that the dispute for power intensified after disagreements escalated over a proposed transition to civilian rule. As part of its ongoing activities, the Al Abbas Holy Shrine's affiliated Intellectual and Cultural Department has announced that its professional employees work on restoring a 400-year-old unique volume of the Holy Quran. The head of the department, Qutayba Al-Qa'abi, said in a statement followed by the Shia Waves agency that the cover of the handwritten Quran is being restored by well-trained employees based on Islamic decorations of the Al Abbas Holy Shrine. Al-Ghabi added that their restoration work is being done professionally to preserve the Holy Quran and to adorn its cover with Islamic shapes. Sayyid al-Shuhada World Sayyid al-Shuhada World Committee, affiliated with the Office of Grand Ayatollah Shirazi in Kuwait, started the construction of the first women's seminary for Shia females in Kenya. Considering the significant growth of reverts and followers of Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, in African countries, we saw it necessary to provide a platform for promoting the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, and teaching the jurisprudence of Jafriya, stated an official of the committee. The project was seen as a crucial religious mission given the importance of learning sciences, especially for Shia women, he added. Currently, Sayyid al-Shuhada World Committee has the most prominent role in spreading the religion of Islam and Shi'ism in African countries, he noted. In view of the warm reception shown by African people to the religion of Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, the vacuum of active religious and cultural centres in this continent is strongly felt, he emphasised, while adding that Sayyid al-Shuhada World Committee has established more than 10 seminaries in the African continent to fulfil this important role. The statement continues by saying that it was a dream for us to establish a women's seminary in Kenya where there are no scholarly centres for women. The officials mentioned that the centre was established in keeping with the directives of Grand Ayatollah Shirazi, may Allah prolong his life, to serve as a religious cultural stronghold for devoted followers of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, and a place to hold religious ceremony, especially rituals. It should be mentioned that the committee has purchased a piece of land for this purpose in Nakuru, one of the most important cities in Kenya. Muhammad Baqir, son of Muhammad Taqi Majlisi, known as Allama Majlisi or Majlisi II, was one of the most prominent Shia scholars and jurists who lived in the 17th century and passed away on 27th of Ramadan at the age of 73. As a prolific author, he wrote many books and treatises on various Islamic topics, including theology, jurisprudence, and history. Although he was a learned scholar in multiple disciplines of Islamic sciences, Allama Majlisi placed most of his efforts into compiling and writing hadith, with his most significant work being Bihar al-Anwar. Allama made a huge impact on the Shi'i culture and generation of scholars to come by, training students and producing a rich and enduring scholarly heritage. Many of his works are written in Persian and intended to help lay people preserve their faith. His works are considered to be among the most important and influential books in Shia Islam, and they continue to be studied and revered by scholars and lay people alike. After years of dedicated service to Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon him, the great Shia scholar passed away in Isfahan and was buried next to his father. The National Arab American Heritage Month, NAAHM, takes place in April. It celebrates Arab American heritage and culture and pays tribute to the contributions of Arab Americans and Arabic-speaking Americans. The Arab researcher and anthropologist said in an article published on the Yes magazine that recognized the National Arab American Heritage Month is important to change how Arabs are portrayed in American culture and to create more opportunities to reflect on stories that portray how rich and diverse Arab American identity is. The article pointed out that this month is celebrated as a time to learn about the history, culture and contributions of a coherent community of around 4 million people, as it is gaining more traction across the US. Moll said that the US President Joe Biden was the first president to recognize the NAAH in 2022, which he did again in 2023, adding that in Virginia have passed a law making this month an annual event to celebrate. We have reached the end of today's Shia Waves show. Let's remind our respected viewers of today's headlines. Ms. Imam Hussein Foundation carries out charitable activities across Afghanistan. Ramadan 27th marks anniversary of tobacco banning Fatima by Mirza Shirazi. Pakistan continues illegal arrest of Afghan refugees, refugee lawyer says. Taliban suspends educational activities until further notice. Construction of first seminary for Shia women in Kenya. Ramadan 27th marks demise of anniversary of Allama Majlisi. April marks National Arab American Heritage Month, a time to learn about cultures and history. You can view the latest news on Shia Waves website, and you can send news of your city or country to be published on our news agency. Contact us on the numbers at the bottom of the screen. This is the end of today's news. Thank you all for watching. We pray to Allah Almighty to hasten the reappearance of the master of our time. Wassalamu alaikum.
Imam Hussein Charity is giving you the chance to provide food baskets for destitute and impoverished families all over Iraq and Afghanistan. Each basket costs around £30, $35 roughly, and can feed a family of 4. The food basket contains essentials such as flour, bread, tomato puree, oil. They get different spices as well, salt, pepper, even